Dann kam der große Augenblick.
Then came the big moment at AGRITECHNICA in Hanover. In November 1995, Fendt presented the Fendt Favorit 926 Vario for the first time. The centerpiece was this ML200 transmission, Richard. But there was still a lot of development work to be done before it got to that point. What were the biggest challenges?
The biggest challenge, of course, was that everything had to be kept strictly confidential. I wasn't even allowed to tell my siblings what I was actually working on at Fendt. From a technical standpoint, the biggest challenge was finding a solution to the noise problem. Back then, we came across an article about a Steyr diesel engine that had been built as an experimental engine with an elastically mounted crank mechanism and cylinders in the crankcase, and it had been published. And we simply adopted this design. What works in a diesel engine should also be possible in a transmission. We combined the hydraulic units with the power split in this assembly. It is pre-assembled and then mounted in the actual tractor frame using a total of 4 rubber bushings. This allowed us to make a huge advancement in noise level reduction.
The development of the hydrostatic units was also very challenging.
Yes, it was more than bumpy. Hans Marschall had built this prototype transmission using Volvo units. However, the collaboration with Volvo did not last very long. In 1988, we then began designing and building hydraulic units ourselves. Hans Marschall had no fear. He was a machine tool engineer and even helped design some of the production facilities. We built around 10 independent pumps and motors as preliminary tests for the ML200. By 1990, through a new Fendt managing director, we learned that a company called Sauer Danfoss actually manufactures units that are similar in design to the Volvo units. Since then, Sauer Danfoss has been a very reliable development and manufacturing partner for us.
And how did the testing of these new technologies, the new continuously variable transmissions, happen in the field?
Yes, simply driving a continuously variable tractor onto the street or field in Marktoberdorf was not an option. Our department head was Robert Honzek. Robert Honzek was originally from the far east of the Czech Republic, and we discreetly transported the first vehicle all the way to the east of the Czech Republic and put it to use on his brother's farm. It was driven there for months. It was even inspected on-site once, as an interim check to see if everything was still working, then reassembled and stayed on that farm for about 11 months in total. It provided us with very valuable insights into how a tractor operates and how to handle it.
In 1995, it was finally time for the initial presentation, and we delivered to the first customers in 1996. Naturally, the first feedback came in, and it was extremely positive, which allowed us to quickly proceed with expanding the entire series.
Yes, the 926 Vario was the highlight in 1995. It was positioned back then as the largest Fendt tractor, just before the exhibition.
And it quickly became clear that we needed the transmission in the lower horsepower classes as well.
We always believed that this concept had potential, not just for the big tractors, but also for medium-sized ones. We started designing smaller transmissions early on, And in 1998, we were able to launch the ML180 in the then brand new 700 Vario series.
So what happened next? It was the late 90s. That was also a big breakthrough with an entirely new vehicle, a completely new transmission, with screen controls and so on. It was already an exciting story. And it quickly became clear that we needed this in lower power ranges as well. How did it continue?
Very soon after, the ML90 was developed in the 400 Vario series. With this, Fendt had a complete range of continuously variable tractors from 86 HP to 286 HP, then referred to as Vario 2000. That was the big highlight in 1999.
So what happened next?
At first, there was a bit of satisfaction, but of course, also a challenge. The Farmer 300 was the Fendt product because everything about the Farmer 300 was Fendt, but it had also aged. We needed to develop a small, robust transmission that would fit into this smaller vehicle. And in 2003, we started building the ML75. Much simpler, much smaller, without a range shift, with a top speed of 40 kilometers per hour. And we brought it to market in 2006 after a very short development time, and it was very well received.
This series was indeed very quickly well received by customers and was also frequently ordered. But the masterpiece was actually in the narrow track tractor sector, developing these continuously variable transmissions, right?
We had an order in 1995, shortly after the introduction of the ML200. Fan technicians from South Tyrol were here and begged us for a small ML200 for the narrow track tractors. So we always had in mind that we needed to get there eventually. But even the ML75 was still too big and too wide. A narrow track transmission can be a maximum of 425 millimeters wide to fit between the rear tires. After the ML75, we were actually able to tackle an even smaller transmission with a smaller hydraulic motor, built significantly shorter so that it fits completely under the driver's seat, and bring the ML70 to market. The ML70 is designed so short and compact that even in the narrow track tractor, a flat cabin floor in front of the driver's seat was finally possible. This was fantastic for the drivers and remains a unique selling point to this day.
Absolutely. And with the Fendt narrow track Vario tractor, we are excellently represented in all markets across Europe in viticulture, fruit growing, and hop cultivation with our Vario narrow track tractor. Now we move on to the second generation of Vario transmissions. What were the challenges here?
Herbert Reiter wanted simply more power than what the ML200 could deliver in all its development stages. It could already reach almost 400 HP, but the customers just wanted even more power. We then took the experience from the ML75, where we had built very small development stage transmissions, and applied this design principle to a much larger scale. We added a significantly larger second hydraulic motor and managed to fit about 50% more power into the same size as the ML200, while also offering a unique feature, a permanent variable all-wheel drive.
And that was the birth of the Fendt 1000 Vario.
The key thing with this large transmission was that when we started in 2006, it was a prerequisite that this transmission would be suitable for the wheeled tractors in Marktoberdorf and also for the track tractors in the USA. So the diversity was essentially built in from the start. After the introduction of the 1050 Vario in 2014, we were able to bring the same transmission with only a few different components to the market in the tracked tractors 3 years later. First in a small tractor, and 3 years later in the large track tractor series. This means a wide range of tractors has already been equipped with it.
Incredibly successful and important for the Fendt brand's future development. That was the Vario transmission's core.